Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Money Matters Top Tips for Success, where each and every day I bring on new business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and have them share their top tips for success with you. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at Adam Torres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, moneymatterstoptips.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Ablorde Ashigbi on the line, and he's founder and CEO over at 4Degrees. Ablorde, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
So I'm excited to get more into what you're doing over at 4Degrees, but before we do that, let's get a little bit further into your background. So how did you get started in your career and in business?
Yeah, so I got started coming out of college, joined a consulting firm called Bain & Company. So large management consulting, typically working with Fortune 500 companies or ones of similar scale, helping them take on important challenges for their operations and for their business. So I joined out of college in their Los Angeles office and spent 3 years on their team, doing everything from performance improvement strategy to kind of growth and a number of other different initiatives internally. Really enjoyed my time there, learned a ton, and ultimately a lot of us ended up becoming entrepreneurs. So I guess in some sense it was somewhat of an entrepreneurial hotbed. But into that experience, or probably a year or so in, I realized that I didn't want to be a consultant for forever. Rather, I wanted to spend my time with earlier stage companies where the potential for growth and job creation and economic dynamism felt kind of the most strong and the most real. And so I started spending a bunch of my free time in the LA area with early stage companies and just trying to get a sense for if that was something I actually wanted to do. So that passion kind of became very real for me at that point. And so the question then became, do I jump in and try to start a company or join something that was pre-existing? Or if the opportunity existed, could I potentially learn to invest in these kinds of businesses? And so at the time I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to join a venture capital fund, and I moved to Chicago. So I joined Pritzker Group Venture Capital based here and spent about 3 years on the investment team, primarily focused on investing in early stage technology companies in the enterprise that called the Series A and Series B stages. Really enjoyed that work. Again, a great group of people. That kind of dual experience in consulting and in venture capital led me to some fundamental insights that led myself and my co-founder to leave that world to start building what is 4Degrees today.
Man, that's awesome. What a great story. I love that. So you started, big company, big consulting firm, you got your feet wet and really learned business working for large companies. Then you kind of went the opposite and you started working with these really small companies. And so now you have that unique vantage point of having seen both and everything in between. And then you went the investor side, so that even rounded out your skill set even more, because now you had to think from the standpoint of not just an operator, but also an investor. So that being said, you do have a unique vantage point. There's some entrepreneurs out there that are listening. They're in that early stage, let's say, realm, or part of their career. Maybe they're just graduating college. Maybe they're on their first business. Maybe they're on their second and the first didn't go so well. What kind of advice would you give to that kind of newbie entrepreneur that's really just out there getting started now?
Yeah, the main piece of advice I give people is to focus heavily on the relationships. To the conversation or to the point you were mentioning, not every single entrepreneurial endeavor or every initiative you launch will go your way, but the things that allow you to get off the ground are usually a function of the people you know and how good of a job you've done in maintaining those relationships over time. So the people that you hire to join your team, probably your first customers, probably your first investors, are not going to be people who you've never met before, but are likely going to be people that you have met and who trust you and who believe in you. And so that comes from having spent the time and energy to ensure those relationships remain solid over time and that you treat people well. And so that's probably the biggest piece of advice. The second, if I may, is just a level of perseverance. Because there are essentially no entrepreneurial stories that have been consistently up and to the right all the way through. Pretty much every entrepreneur can tell you a point in time where it felt like their company or their product or their business wasn't going to work. And the ones who win are ultimately ones who are willing to persevere through either short-term or bigger failures.
That's great advice. I love it. Let's switch it up a bit, Ablorde. I want to get into what you're doing now over at 4Degrees. So you hinted at it, but let's go a little bit further. Tell me a little bit more about the company, please.
Absolutely. And so I mentioned that the company came from an insight that myself and my co-founder had during our prior experiences in consulting and venture capital. And that insight was that those businesses, alongside so many others, were fundamentally underpinned by the networks and relationships that surrounded them. So in venture capital, our ability to find interesting companies to invest in, to diligence those deals appropriately, to pull together an investment syndicate, and then once invested, help our companies find customers and talent and next round investors and potentially acquirers, was a function of the set of people we knew and how well we could leverage that combined network to accomplish those goals. In consulting, partners' abilities to stay engaged with a set of Fortune 500 executives that were going to turn into, multi-million-dollar projects for the firm or for the office, again, was a function of kind of the relationships they were building over long periods of time. And the challenge that we faced in both of those worlds was that there weren't really products that built with that understanding of how these organizations and how these relationships actually worked in practice. And so we were jamming them into a set of systems that were built for different purposes. The most standard of which was your historical CRM systems, so think your Salesforces of the world, which are great if you're an enterprise, sales manager, but not at all great for these relationship-driven industries. And so in practice, where this work actually happens is in a combination of Excel spreadsheets and Evernote notes and Trello and in your Microsoft Outlook inboxes. And so we found opportunity to build the product we wished we had to help relationship industries take advantage of their most important asset, which are the relationship networks that they have. So in practice, what we built is a product that plugs into communication channels like email, calendar, existing CRM systems. That gives us a view for who a team is connected to and is communicating with. And then we apply a bunch of intelligence on top of that to essentially give them a shared, constantly up-to-date digital Rolodex that they can use to instantly find their best path to a given company or person, along with insights about the people and the companies in their network that may help them move opportunities and business relationships forward.
What has been, and I mean, it sounds amazing, and I'm just curious about what kind of feedback you have received from some of the users from your service, because it sounds just super convenient. Honestly, it sounds like it kind of gets you through the clutter and it gets you to your highest value relationships at the optimal time when you need it, right? So, what kind of feedback have you heard? It's a very interesting product to me and what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've been lucky to have been able to get this product out to market and get really strong reception from our customers. And we see that in the underlying business metrics too, where, we get a number of customers referring us to others. And in fact, actually probably our biggest growth channel today is referrals from existing customers. We see it in customers starting off with smaller teams and then actually expanding their presence and expanding their work with us. And then we get anecdotes consistently, whether via social media or directly to our team's inboxes that rave about some of the intelligent features we're bringing to bear on their behalf. In fact, one example is one of our most popular features is a portion of the product that's a text travel that you have upcoming on your calendar, and then we'll send you a list of important relationships of yours or in your teams that are based in the destination city. And so you don't have to sit there and actually go search anything to get that answer. You just get an email, call it 20 minutes after you put that flight or book that meeting on your calendar with a bunch of important relationships. And so that kind of anticipatory intelligence, as we describe it, is something that our customers oftentimes get really excited about.
Man, that's awesome. I get it completely, and it makes a lot of sense. So if somebody is, what's the sweet spot for the right type of client for 4Degrees or the right type of person to use your services? Just so I have an idea. So, because if somebody's listening to this, they're man, that sounds like it makes a lot of sense for me. What's the sweet spot for you?
Yeah, so today we go after a subset of what we describe of relationship-driven industries. So the specific ones where we're spending the most time today. So the first are the private equity and venture capital world. So again, where their abilities to find interesting companies and help their portfolio companies is a function of the network that they have. The second is in the M&A and investment banking community, which is very much tied to those first two, but has very similar dynamics. And then the third has been in commercial real estate. So again, think brokerage teams whose business lives and dies off of who they know and how best they can leverage their network to get in front of interesting companies that may be ready to move space. We also do have a couple customers in the consulting world as well. So those tend to be the four industries where we spend the most time, and we'll continue to expand our presence in the future. But as an earlier stage business, you want to make sure you stay focused so you can ensure that the experience people get is the best possible.
That's awesome. So, Ablorde, if somebody's listening to this and they do fall in those niches and they do want more information on 4Degrees, what's the best way for them to reach out and to learn more?
Sure. So the first, they can go to our company website, which is 4Degrees.ai. The second is they can feel free to reach out to me directly, either at my email, ablorde@4degrees.ai, or via Twitter at Ablordes says.
Fantastic. Well, hey, Ablorde, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and all the great work that you're doing now at 4 Degrees. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store, share this with your friends and family. I mean, do all those great things we do to support our podcasters. I really do appreciate it. And Ablorde, thank you again for coming on the show.